Hello, everybody. We are live here with ProCare Health, and we have Kayla Girgen here with us. And it looks like we have some people here already getting ready to join us. Um, what do you think about our new little intro video? That's something new we just added. So let us know. It looks like Kathy, hello. She's going to be coming online with us here, or she has been online with us before. As one of our guests. We also have Helena, Amy, and Marilyn that said hi so far. Kayla, go ahead and say hi too as well, and we'll do a formal
Hey.
introduction here in a moment.
Yes. No, I'm glad everybody's spending their most precious resource with us tonight, and that's time. So I know I'm in the Midwest and it is beautiful tonight too. So on top of that, I feel like super honored to be here with everybody. So
Yeah, it is pretty. Which part of the Midwest are you from, Kayla?
I am central Minnesota, so smack dab in the middle. I'll try to like cover up my accent, but that's why I'm like flannel on and just really embracing fall.
Me too. I'm from Missouri, and I have my jacket here on too as well because that was kind of chilly. I This week I've been traveling. I told Kayla it's kind of been a crazy week for me. I went to a conference this last week in Florida, and then from there I went to Texas to go. My son had a procedure he was having done, and then back to Missouri. So um, I feel like even today has been a whirlwind. I just got back this afternoon, and I'm actually drinking coffee. I hardly ever drink coffee, but I'm like, oh my God, I got to do something to wake
It's
up.
going to bed 5 p.m. So
Exactly. Well, I'm going to do a couple little brief introductions, and then I'm going to kind of turn things over to Kayla. So, for all of you joining us, I want to say hello. Kayla's community is here with us, so we're excited to have them. We're excited to have the Berry Nation community. Say hello if you're from Kayla's community, if you're from the Berry Nation community. We also have the weight loss surgery support that is from one of our facilities, and let us know if you're from there as well. And then just the ProCare Health community that's been ongoing. So we have a lot of different communities joining. For those of you who are joining for the very first time, my name is Brenda, and I've been doing these now for about 2 years, these different live events and support groups. We just changed over to a brand new platform. So I'm going to, here in a moment when Kayla's talking, I'll go in and I'll get our new link so that you can follow us on our new channel and make sure that you're getting reminders. Just kind of fun little things on our newest channel. Our newest channel is basically like our old one, but just some new features and things that they've been able to add. My background is in nursing, and I have my past history with this niche has been. I basically came in touch with ProCare, who's our sponsor, about probably it's almost went on 10 years ago. And I was working as a bariatric surgery nurse coordinator for a weight loss surgery program. And we sold their vitamins out of our clinic, and I fell in love with them. Actually, we sold 3 or 4 different kinds, but they were my favorites. Kind of became friends with the company owners, and basically when my job there came to an end because our program was closing with COVID, reached out to Nick, our CEO, and he just kind of made a job. And this is basically what I do almost full time now, is do these kind of things. So it's been a really fun adventure. I also had weight loss surgery back in 2013. Had the sleeve gastrectomy, and so I try to incorporate that into this journey. I also have a degree in life coaching, and then a little certification in something called Healing Touch, which is a holistic measure. So I just kind of bring a lot of different ideas and thought processes and try to incorporate everything. And Kayla here, our guest, I'm going to let you kind of do a formal introduction, but I just want to say she's an online bariatric dietitian. She's the founder of something called Life, which she's going to talk more about. And she's just a great resource. And I've just found her to be amazing in every single way possible. I don't know. I don't even know how else to rephrase that, but I'm just going to kind of turn over to you, Kayla, and let you say hi.
Yes. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining us. My name's Kayla Girgen, and you said it right, Brenda. So thank you. But I have been a dietitian for about 5 years, and actually, dietitians, like as they are going through education, do an internship. So similar to how like a physician would do a residency. And one of my first rotations was actually on a bariatric surgery unit. And that's really where I first came into contact with kind of bariatric surgery. And I just love the combination of, all the physical changes, like anatomy changes, and then the psychology. And really we'll bring those two together tonight, like talking about emotional eating, one of my favorite topics. And so, yes, I've always worked in weight management and bariatrics and just really love it. Again, I think it's so needed. It's not maybe talked about enough. And especially tonight's topic. And when I'm not working and working with my life members, I am in Minnesota, like I said. So, right now, we're trying to soak up like all the last little bits of fall and hiking. And if you follow me already on social media, then you probably see all my kitty pics too. So, and love to read. And I'm a new novice like kombucha brewer. So, a few little fun things.
So Kayla, where's your main social media platform? Would you say Instagram or would you say TikTok or both?
I would say, so I know we have a lot of people joining from TikTok. I would say I probably am most active on Instagram just because that's what I know, and the least active on things like Facebook, and I usually don't get along. So I would say Instagram and TikTok for sure. Yes.
Okay. Well, I bet we probably have a lot of people here that are from those platforms. And what we'll do is before we get off tonight, we'll make sure and show them your page so that they can kind of take a look at that too in your hand, get
Sounds
your
good.
handles and stuff.
Mhm.
Um, so at this point, you guys, we're going to be talking about emotional eating. And I feel like, Kayla, I'm just going to say for me, myself, I've learned that that's probably like where I need the most focus, especially the last few years. So I'm almost 10, like I basically 2013. I'm really just about 10 years out from my surgery. And I think my weight has kind of stabilized probably the last 5 years. I really haven't had a lot of ups or downs or anything like that. I feel pretty good, but I want to feel better about like the choices I'm making and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So,
You're not alone in that, I think, and this is where, we talk about, like, old habits creeping back, and I think we could just might as well say emotional eating creeping back. And I think the last few years too, just, like, being indoors so much and just kind of being within the confines of our home a lot more people I've noticed have just especially struggled, the last 2 years. So, yes.
and it looks like too, anybody that's out there, it looks like we have a lot more people that's joining. Marilyn, Cindy, Vicky, Christy, Sandra, Judy. We're saying hello to all you guys. Gwen. Um, we have a Barry Nation friend. We have Michelle, Jennifer, Judy, Vicky, Carolyn, some anonymous, and we have Marlene, there's Judy, another Judy, and then a Carolyn. So, yeah, you guys, please let us know. That chat box is there to communicate. Let us know if you have questions. There's actually there's a box. You may be able to see it. Our platform's new, so I'm not really sure how it's showing up for you guys, but there may be a Q&A box. You're welcome to punch on that. If you have a question on our older platform, they called it V1, people could put their question in there. And what happens is it's time stamped so that we know, like if you can't listen to the whole thing, you come back and listen to the replay. It'll be time stamped when we answer your question. So if you have a question, you want to put it there, or you can put it in the chat box. Either way. In that measure, go for it, Kayla. I'm going to let you kind of take off.
All right, sounds good. So let me, get my slides up here. All right, perfect. Here we go. So we will get rolling here. So welcome again, everyone. We are going to be talking about emotional eating. So again, my name's Kayla. I am a bariatric dietitian. We've got Brenda here from ProCare. And like Brenda said, that chat box is there. So I would love to hear from you guys if you have any thoughts or questions as we kind of work throughout the presentation here. Because hopefully, if you're feeling vulnerable and kind of working through some of the activities that we are going to do today, that will just help maybe see that you're not alone and maybe who's struggling with similar things as you. So, with that, tonight, my goal is to cover just some of the origins of emotional eating. So, some of the overarching themes, like how do we get here? And then we will run through kind of a real, a real time activity, I guess, with you guys just really kind of digging into some of your personal emotional eating triggers. And then we will wrap up with just helping you distinguish some of those hunger and cravings as well. So, why emotional eating? How do we get here? And I think a big piece of that is just in general restrictions. So when you think of like dieting or like strict food rules, especially after surgery, there's so many rules, right? It feels like you can't have this, you can't have that. And what do we crave? Things that we can't have, right? So we can get into this cycle, which we'll talk about a little bit. And I think food, we use it to, maybe cope with feelings. And then we also use it as a source of joy. So I think food is a really big central part of how we communicate with our friends and our family. And we use it to celebrate. So it's not only something that's there for us when we're sad, but it's also a way to celebrate and joyful times. So really a whole spectrum of emotions involved with emotional eating. So next, we use it as a coping mechanism. And I think after surgery, especially in those early months and weeks after surgery, maybe when you have more restriction, I think it's can be frustrating for a lot of people when they lose that coping mechanism. So if you have, any emotional attachments to food leading up to surgery, so I see we have a lot of pre-op people. So applauding you for showing up tonight. One of the number one things you can do is just start working on those emotional attachments to food before surgery. Because as Brenda mentioned, I think that's one thing that tends to kind of sneak back with time. So, especially after that honeymoon phase, right?
Yeah, Kayla, I want to say too. So, can you actually see the chat box?
I can, yes.
Okay, because sometimes on our old platform, when you were sharing your screen, you weren't able to. So I'm glad you're able to do that.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention that there was a question that looks like somebody posted. What I'm going to do is just I posted it in our Q&A, and we'll kind of keep talking. If you find that you'd like to try to if you find that it kind of works organically into the conversation, please feel free to answer.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll kind of save some of those too.
Sounds good. All right. And then the last one is just using food as an avoidance tool. So one of my personal favorite ways to eat emotionally is something that I like to call procrastinacking. So when we use food to avoid other things. So say for example, like maybe you have an event or an activity coming up, or you feel like you should or could be doing all of these things. Food is a way of doing, or eating is something that you can do. It feels like you're doing something, but really you're not accomplishing any sort of meaningful work. So there's your word for the day, is procrastinate. So.
I loved what you said though about the emotional attachments. I just want to say I want to say something about that really quickly. I just feel like that hits home because so many times we're emotionally attached to certain kinds of foods. And that's something, like becoming aware of your emotional attachments, whatever it might be. Maybe it's chips, or maybe it's pizza, or maybe it's like, and sometimes people think I cannot give up a certain thing, but really and truly, is it really giving something up? Is it just becoming more free? Because if you're attached to something, that food has control over you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
Right.
just a food for thought. I'll let you keep going.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love the interjection. So, but one thing I think too, when we look at like emotional eating, a big thing that feeds into that is the all or nothing mindset. And I think we think about, or maybe know that we are challenged with all or nothing thinking, but to try and work through that or manage it is a whole nother challenge. But really, to begin, the all or nothing mindset is just like thinking in extreme. So good and bad, it's either or, kind of black and white, there's nothing in the middle. And when I think of all or nothing, on the other end of that, I think of like balance. And that's what I hear from a lot of the women that I work with is like, I want to find balance, or I want to get in control, or, really what that means is kind of playing in that middle area. So in that gray area and not thinking so much in the black and white. And we actually do have some research that is showing that all or nothing thinking is linked to negative thinking, anxiety, and poor mood. So if you recognize that you do struggle with all or nothing thinking, then you're probably maybe seeing symptoms like that as well. And then one thing that really feeds into this is just following strict food and diet rules. And I love this visual. So I just shared this with my life members recently and we had some good discussions, but just this vicious cycle of dieting essentially. So think of like yo-yo diets, how many times you've maybe started something and started all over again, but just recognizing where you're at in here can be really helpful. But when we look at, that desire to be thin or to see a certain number on the scale, what do? We look for something to tell us what to do, right? So something to tell us that this is right and that is wrong. So we essentially kind of seek some of that all or nothing or either or when we look for certain diets. And once we maybe feel like we lose our willpower a little bit, then we get these cravings, and then all of a sudden we feel like we've kind of spun out of control or off the wagon, if you will. And here we are overeating, maybe binging, and then we're right back to where we started. So I think this cycle can be really helpful again, just to kind of maybe recognize, like maybe you're like, ooh, I'm in this box right now and I'm kind of heading towards this one. And this is probably something that feels really familiar to people. But I think on our psyche, this can be, really, really kind of daunting and heavy and have a lot of negative effects, but then also on body composition too. So when you look at just the effects of yo-yo dieting over time, so when we go from box 1 to 2 and we seek really low calories or do some sort of crash diet for a wedding or a certain event, unfortunately we'll see maybe some good progress as far as we think, so maybe some weight loss, but unfortunately sometimes that means muscle loss too. So over time we tend to lose muscle and we tend to put fat back on. So over time we again kind of get into this yo-yo effect where we're losing muscle, gaining fat, and you might find yourself at the same weight that you were 5 years ago, but some of your clothes might be fitting or your body composition might be different. So this cycle is not so great on our mind or the body. So what do we do? How do we kind of go against the grain a little bit, if you will? So how do we combat that all or nothing thinking? So step one is just self-awareness. And I think having awareness is going to be the first step in making any sort of change and really identifying some of your patterns. So what we're going to do here in a little bit is do kind of work through maybe your specific emotional eating scenario. So hopefully that will help identify your specific patterns and planning ahead. So that's going to be key as well. So if you think of just going through that again, this vicious cycle that we looked at the previous slide, when you're doing this, that has a really big impact on your confidence. So you might be starting something new and thinking, hey, I've failed 10 other times. What makes this time different? But one way to help work around that is things like planning ahead. So whether it's just planning, packing your lunch for the next day or scheduling in a workout, doing what you can do to plan ahead is going to help prepare and precede your confidence. And lastly, personal ownership. So I don't want to sound harsh, but unfortunately, nobody's going to come to save you. And really, the thing is that you are the only person that's responsible or that can change your own habits. And while it can be something that is difficult to accept at first, just saying, okay, it is what it is, meeting yourself where you're at, because once you've accepted that, then you can take ownership to make those changes happen. So just a few things on kind of working against that all or nothing. And to wrap up that little section, I just like to think on the other end of all or nothing thinking is self-trust. So if on one hand you imagine we've got all or nothing thinking where you've got, really strict maybe rules around food or diets, And then on the other end, you have things like self-trust and balance. And it's going to take a while to get from one side to the other. And that is going to take time. So hopefully we can make some progress tonight.
Yeah, Kayla, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
The self-trust and the all or nothing thinking. What is one little thing, or is this something that you're going to be talking about? Like, what can somebody do to, for me, what pops up in my mind is affirmations, like a little, that little self-talk that you tell yourself over and over that just kind of helps promote you to get you right in the right mindset. Because sometimes I think people start slipping into a fear, of something, and then that's where the self-trust kind of comes in. Like, if you're fearful of doing something wrong or doing something that's not kind of getting you to your goals, and then you kind
Mhm.
of slip into, oh my god, I did it, I'm just falling off the wagon, so then you just kind of go in this spiral.
Mhm.
And to me, like, what helps me is kind of like little affirmations or things like, I can trust myself. I know that I'm doing a lot of the things, like 90% of the things I'm doing is for the cause, or like little things like that. Do you have anything to offer on that?
I would say one of my biggest things is journaling. So if you can put pen to paper or even do like something like an electronic journal, it doesn't have to be, a novel, but I think putting pen to paper can really just help get some of those thoughts out. Like think about how you clear your cache on your internet browser, or you just kind of do a download of your thoughts for the day. It can really help just wipe some of those thoughts out so you can create space to maybe just get in touch with yourself. So I think that's part of it, is we're just so far removed from our thoughts because we're busy doing all the other things and wondering who's taking the kids where, or whether you shut the garage door or not. And we just get so, sucked into everything that we don't get that space with ourselves. So I think sometimes it's just kind of, especially after surgery, when you're navigating this whole new life, is just kind of really getting down to your core values and who you are. And I think journaling can be a big piece of that. So hopefully did that answer your question? Okay.
Yeah, it definitely did. I think, for me personally too, journaling is one of the most powerful
Mhm.
things, because sometimes I'll just actually write the question. It's like, why am I? Maybe it's fearful of something, or why am I having this eating pattern, or why am I? And then just kind of sit there and just listen for whatever answers kind of come,
Right.
because sometimes our own guidance is the best guidance that we can get. So I totally agree with you. And there are some more comments too.
Mm.
Um,
Well, you look at that, I was going to say, like, getting in touch with yourself, it's that really quiet voice. I think our inner critic tends to be the loud one that we hear a lot. And that really quiet voice that's, your intuition, if you will, is probably the one that you should be listening to. But that inner critic can be a lot louder than your intuition.
Oh, 100%. It looks like Lisa's saying to be gentle with yourself, and I think that's huge. That's very
Mhm.
big. And then Kathy says, create sense anchors, things you see, hear, feel, and smell in your environment that remind you of what you are doing well and that have been successful in some things.
I love
I've not
that.
heard that. That's a great
I
idea.
love that, sense acres. Well, then it kind of gets you, I can see where that can remove you from just all of those toxic thoughts that you might have in the moment too. Mhm. All right. Now, this is where you guys get to reflect a little bit. So I'd love, again, if you're feeling vulnerable, feel free to share in the chat box. But we're going to work through just what your scenario looks like for emotional eating. So when I say emotional eating, what scenario comes to mind? And we're going to work through this. So in my Back on Track program, I work with women through the who, what, where, when, why. And we're going to do that step by step here today. So feel free as we move along. Maybe you have, a buddy out there who has some similarities in your eating pattern here. So to start breaking it down, like if you think of when I say emotional eating, or, if you're kind of defaulting to food, where are you? So are you physically at work? Are you at home? If you're at home, are you standing in front of the fridge? Are you standing in front of the pantry? Like, where are you physically? So next, what are you eating? So I can probably guarantee we all have our certain foods that we tend to gravitate to. And so what are those for you? Is it something sweet? Is it something salty? Do you need to balance the sweet with the salty and back and forth? Like what kinds of foods do you tend to gravitate towards? And maybe even like thinking back to that cycle, like the dieting cycle, maybe it's something that you feel like is off limits. That could be something too. We tend to crave those a little bit more when we kind of put them in the black and white boxes. And then who is present? So maybe you're alone. That tends to be common. Or are you maybe with family? Are you influenced by friends or family? Are there certain people who you notice that you eat more with? And so this is for, any closet eaters. We tend to eat alone or maybe don't want people to see us because maybe we're feeling some shame in that sense too. And then what type of day is it? So I find for a lot of women especially, they struggle afternoon, after work. So usually the later part of the day. So afternoon, maybe it's after work or after you put the kids to bed. That can be a really common time, I think, when a lot of people struggle too. And then lastly, the big question, why? So, why are you eating out of emotion? And to help with that big why question, we'll dig into first, how did you get here? So, what was the string of events that led up to this moment? So, if you think back, maybe within the preceding, hour or so, like what was that string of events? Is it more out of habit? Was it an emotion that triggered you? What emotion are you experiencing right now? And what emotion are you maybe craving or seeking? Because I think a lot of times, I love this phrase here, is it's not even food that we crave, but it's often a change in emotion. So when you think back to, say, for example, you really struggle when you get home from work. So maybe you come home, you're just stressed out, you're glad you made it through the day and you just want some relief. So you're craving that relief, but you feel like you've got 10 million other things that you should be doing. And eating is kind of, again, think back to snacking. It's just kind of a detour to get to that feeling. So finding other more healthy ways to be able to capture that change in emotion that's not maybe related to food. Because again, I would ask yourself, what are you craving? And what you might be craving might not even be food. All right, so what can you do? So in the moment, I know if you find yourself kind of more like frenzied or fast eating, if you can slow down even just for 2 minutes and listen, that is going to just be able to help you redirect a lot easier. So slowing down, pausing, listening. I've even had some people set a timer. So if you set your, microwave timer for 5 minutes and come back 5 minutes and just see how you feel once you can kind of remove yourself from that moment, and sharing satisfying or making satisfying meals. So, first of all, just setting yourself up for success. And one thing that I do with my life members is help them just create like blood sugar friendly meal patterns. And that's going to really set you up when you're not kind of chasing this blood sugar roller coaster, which a lot of times, if you struggle with emotional eating, we tend to, gravitate towards foods that aren't healthy for us and things that are high in carbs, high in fat. And it's going to take a little bit to balance those blood sugars out. But once you do, it's going to make your job a lot easier in trying to redirect some of those habits. So, really getting into making satisfying meals. And in the resource sheet that Brenda posted, I do have my free grocery list, and that is a good spot to start on some of those things. And if you do sign up for that, then you do get a mini kind of email series on macros for weight loss too, just to walk you through kind of how to use that grocery list. So that's a really great resource too. And then eating without distractions. So when's the last time you ate a meal without a screen? Like I'm totally guilty of this. It's like eating lunch and checking emails or eating dinner in front of the TV, scrolling through TikTok while you're eating meals. It's almost like that those screens are there as a companion and it feels really weird to eat without distraction. So just thinking about really what you can do to create a calm eating environment and something where you can really focus on all your senses can help get more satisfaction from your meals. And then, as our friends at Berry Nation like to say, giving yourself some space and grace. So, somebody had mentioned, Lisa mentioned, just being gentle with yourself and absolutely recognizing that this is a habit and a ritual that's maybe happened for a really long time. And just because you attended today doesn't mean that it's going to, banish overnight, and it's going to take some work to kind of redirect those habits again. So giving yourself some space and grace, and again, trying to maybe tone down that inner critic voice and listening more to that intuition as well. And it looks like, Brenda, you just posted a link to that resource sheet too. So that resource sheet, anything that is underlined will take you out to the links as well.
Yeah. So Kayla, I also want to I hope you can hear me. I turned off
Mhm.
I've been muting myself so it doesn't, they can't hear me typing and stuff. Um, when you were talking about keeping your blood sugars and stuff stable and helping keep you from being so hungry, which helps keep your cravings at bay. One other thing that I just want to kind of add is, being nutritionally sound, like eating foods that actually not only keep your blood sugars stable, but are maybe of a wide variety, and that are really healthy foods can also help. Because if your vitamin mineral levels and um, the foods that you're eating are good. I hate to use the word good and bad, but foods that help stabilize your mood, stabilize your blood sugar, stabilize your body, they're really sound foods, then it's going to help too.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll make your
Because there's
job a lot
different kinds
easier.
I would say there's different kinds of hunger, um, that is one. And I think too, just making sure you're drinking water, because sometimes we're actually thirsty. You might
Mhm.
get into that too as well, but sometimes there's just different kinds, just listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that's on that resource sheet too, I don't know if you can see my screen, but this bariatric surgery journal, I absolutely love, because if you are a tracker, I think just going even to a paper version can be really helpful, because it takes that focus off of numbers and kind of that all or nothing as well. But one thing that I really love about this journal in particular is that next to each meal, it has a box and it says, I ate because I felt hungry, tired, bored, or emotional. And just recognizing kind of some of those triggers, maybe around meal times. And then on top of that, it does have a hunger fullness scale. So if you're looking for something, there is really good resources in here, and it does have a daily planner. So it's like a daily planner slash food journal. But love, love, love that. And that is in the resource sheet as well. But again, that can help like track water, like Brenda said, because just staying hydrated is huge, and making sure you're nutritionally sound. Your food plays so much into your mood. And when we talk about emotional eating, it's really huge. Or even movement. I don't have movement or activity on the slate for today, but I think so many times we think about moving to burn calories or earn calories, and more so we need to be looking at activity for things as a healthy outlet for stress and some of those benefits for our mind, versus thinking it of exercise as burning calories, because that's really your time in the day. So
Kayla, this question that came up earlier, Jennifer's question, is it a good time to talk to her about that? She basically had said, if not, we can kind of hold, but basically, um uh, I'm new with this question thing. It just popped off. I think it's because I quote answered it and I didn't mean to be completing it. But basically, she was asking, she said that I'm going to go back in the chat. She said, I just had my seventh miscarriage and I can't stop eating carbs and sugar. Where do I start? And I'm going to just say too, Jennifer, I'm so sorry that happened. I know that has to be devastating, not only emotionally, but physically as well. And on a lot of different levels. And it really, your answer, Kayla, may help not only Jennifer but other people who are struggling, because all of us, we all have different challenges in life, and sometimes food is such a good it feels like a good coping mechanism,
mhm.
because we use it um, like it's a go-to. It's like, okay, I'm going to numb this pain. If I eat, I feel better. Like I feel better right now. I may not feel better later, but can you say anything about that? And maybe why eating carbs and sugar? Why that? Do you feel like that gives a person a high, and it draws them in that sugar? It's kind of like a, um,
We get that dopamine hit maybe. We get our pleasure centers light up definitely, and I think it's just, it's a temporary solution really because there's, obviously some big emotions there, and I think, one outlet could be again, like we talked a little bit about journaling or something like affirmations, like kind of shifting some of that energy. And when we look at like what kind of emotional state are you trying to get to, the journaling can help tease that out. But then when it comes to nutrition, I think when we get into that all or nothing mindset or really like craving like the carbs and the sugar and recognizing that those things aren't necessarily off limits, but kind of tying back to our blood sugar balance is even not having some of those foods alone. So when we look at like slider foods after surgery, so some of those things like maybe desserts and chips and things that just don't stick with us very, very long, even pairing that up with something like a protein source or a healthy fat source just can help give us a little bit more fulfillment. So we're not, you know, ending up, eating the whole bag of Doritos. Maybe it's having some Doritos and a string cheese or something that's going to be a little bit more satiating and stick with you longer. So I think food pairing can help a lot too when it comes to just managing some of that. But there's definitely, I would imagine, some really big feels there. And I think kind of attacking it maybe from a nutrition's perspective by pairing that with other things. And then again, from maybe an emotional standpoint, from something like as simple as journaling, or depending on where you're at too, even, I think therapy, I mean, we've got a lot of, like you said, Brenda, people with different challenges in life. And I think therapy can always be a good option too, if you think that's a good fit.
Well, and I think too, when you look at why, like it kind of goes back to what you were talking about, like why would you be eating more sugars and carbs? What are you looking for? Is it a boost of energy? Is it you're looking for something emotional? Like maybe it's a comfort. Maybe you're looking for some acceptance. I don't know what it is. Maybe, you have to ask yourself that. But anytime, like if you ask yourself that question, and if it's usually not necessarily the food, and if you feel like it's not necessarily the food, then there's something deeper, and if you can heal that, you're tying it directly to the miscarriages, so there likely is something related to that. There's some kind of maybe grief or something like that, and if you can figure that out, that will help too. Bringing awareness to it is the biggest thing, I think. um, and,
Mhm.
and Kathy Hill she said there's 9 kinds of hunger. So, asking yourself, are you hungry or
Mhm.
is it emotional? Like figuring out what kind of hunger.
Mhm.
I know there's books on the different kinds of hunger. I know we've done lives on that before, but anything you suggest on that piece, Kayla?
Yeah, that's actually, I think might be, let's see here. Okay. Yes, we'll be talking a little bit about like just kind of distinguishing maybe more like head hunger versus more physical hunger. So we'll do a very like broad overview. We're not getting into the 9 different types, but
Uh-huh.
that will definitely kind of help maybe tease out the physical versus the mental hunger. I will, another book that I have in my resources is The Eat What You Love What You Eat, and that is a really good book too that talks a little bit more about, I don't know that it goes in depth to all of the different types of hunger, but that is just really helpful for kind of finding that balance with food too, and just recognizing too that hunger isn't a bad thing sometimes. Mhm.
Yeah. And I think sometimes too, just like today, for example, today I'm tired because I've been traveling, and I got back, we had eaten, me and my son ate on our way back home. And then I got in my office and I'm like, I feel like I'm hungry. And I was like, okay. And I was asking myself, am I really hungry or am I like craving something? I was kind of craving sugar. And I was thinking, um, like if something that's like, I'm gonna call it like really would stabilize my blood sugar, like a chicken breast, say, and some kind of vegetable. If that, I wasn't craving that, and I was like, okay, then I'm not probably really hungry. I think I'm just tired, and I needed something to drink. I mean, I was just sleepy. So sometimes just asking yourself those questions.
Right.
There's some more questions. Do you want to read any of those? Kayla, can you see them?
Yes. So I think I did see one, like, is there a difference between stress eating and emotional eating? And I would maybe think of emotional eating as an umbrella term and maybe tuck stress eating under that. If we think about like stress or feeling overwhelmed, like that could be feelings or emotions tied to it. So again, you're probably thinking about maybe how can I get some relief? And while we maybe look to food as a temporary source of numbing or relief, it's only going to really postpone some of those feelings. So maybe looking at other sorts of stress management tools that can help, because I feel like women especially, like we put everybody first and we tend to put ourselves last, and we just are oftentimes pouring from an empty cup, and that is very draining over time. So we kind of just continue to be in that vicious cycle a lot. So it's hard, and I think especially before and after surgery, it's a really big decision. So really you pursuing surgery is like putting yourself first for maybe your first time in your life, and that's a really big decision, and that carries with it, I feel like, maybe a lot of guilt for some people when they feel like they maybe could have done it on their own per se, or really trying to focus on themselves when they have a family to care for as well. So where was I going there? So
No, that
stress,
it makes
yeah,
sense.
stress and emotional eating. So yes, I would think that stress and feeling of overwhelm would be one of those emotional states that maybe you're trying to avoid.
Kayla, this is in the question and answer portion, and I started just typing it out. But somebody's asking, where can I buy the journal? And I know you said it's on your emotional eating resource guide. Where is it at on under there? From more from Kayla books or podcast?
It is under books. I'll drop a link here too. So I just dropped a link to it. And I
Okay.
think it's like $13 on Amazon. I believe it's 2 months worth. But again, you kind of have a one side as your planner and then one side as your food tracker as well. So
Okay.
hopefully, I don't know if you can click. Yes, it looks like it should let you click there.
And Kathy said, could Jennifer be experiencing psychological shifts and maybe looking forward to some changes soon? That's a great question. Maybe she's already starting to, I mean, if she's aware, maybe she's making those changes right now. I don't know. Or what would you say to that?
Um, I let me see the be experiencing some physiological shifts. I would think too, like looking at physiology, like hormones have a big role on our mood and emotions. So definitely.
Yeah,
Mhm.
good suggestion, Kathy. It looks like she also posted the name of the book, and I know it's on Amazon because I've seen it there before. Mindful Eating by Jan Chosen Bays, MD. I'm pretty sure it is. Um,
Yes, I'm gonna get that. That'll be on my wish list here shortly.
It says mindset. Tara says mindset is so hard. Sometimes it can be so hard to keep in the right headspace when stress and emotions kick in.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think too, like the quote that I have up is mindset work, unfortunately, it's not like surgery. It doesn't happen overnight. And I think it's a lot harder to quantify too. So when we look at like progress, like looking at a number on the scale or counting grams of protein or, working out for X amount of minutes or getting steps in, it's like all of those things have numbers tied to them that we can measure, but we can't measure really mindset work. You could maybe count how many journal posts you've written or how many affirmations you've said to yourself, but that mindset work is really the invisible work. And for a lot of women, I find that that's the big piece that's missing because it's hard to work on something that's invisible. I think when we don't have those, more tangible results, but ultimately it's really going to reflect on your mood and how you feel ultimately.
Well, and two, Kayla, you kind of brought up a good point. Like, how do you know if the mindset is working? You know how you know, I think, is if you're seeing the things in your life that you're really wanting to see on us. How can I say this? Because it's not necessarily the things you always want to see, because sometimes things are meant to be um there for us even though we don't understand, like letting go of the positive versus negative, kind of like everything has to be positive, negative, but what you're seeing in your life is really a reflection of what is most active in your focus. I guess
Hmm.
that's just what I want to say. So like how you're feeling and all that, it's just a reflection. What you're seeing in your life is a reflection of where your focus is, I guess, is
Yeah. And I think too, if you like looking at, we are talking about books, like Mindset is by Carol Dweck, and she talks about just having a fixed mindset where things can't change versus a growth mindset. And maybe looking at life through a couple different lenses. Like, is it something that you feel like you have, the capability to change? And a growth mindset really encompasses like, yes, I'm in the midst of a challenge right now, but I can use this as an opportunity to learn and grow and kind of mold some of those skills. So just seeing maybe some of those challenges or failures as opportunities, which in the moment is really, really challenging, but you'll look back months from now and, think of how many times that's happened in life where you're like, oh, I didn't get this job or I got fired here. But then you're like, I'm so happy for it looking back now. That happens a
Yeah,
lot. Mhm.
it definitely does. And I've said that 100 times too, Kayla. I want to say too that this group, thank you guys for supporting each other, not just for weight loss surgery here, but Carolyn's posting for you, Jennifer, an email that you can, and a phone number for bereavement, for and a support group for women who've experienced miscarriage. So she's posting some resources for you. That's
Awesome.
sweet.
Thank you. Mhm. All right, well, we'll get into the final section here. And this is where we were talking about different types of hunger. So, again, this will just be a broad overview of the difference between hunger and cravings. But again, if you're finding yourself maybe in that moment when you think back to your emotional eating scenario, if you create 30 seconds of space to kind of think about these two differences that we'll look at here, it just might really help you, like Brenda said, ask yourself, are you hungry? Or what is it exactly that you're craving? Is it food or is it emotion? So, when we look at hunger versus craving, so hunger tends to be more gradual versus a craving comes on suddenly. So, was it, somebody ticked you off at work, or the kids won't leave you alone, or, some of those really sudden emotions can make those happen pretty quickly. So, whereas hunger is going to be more physical, think of like your stomach growling, or we were talking about blood sugar. So, how maybe you feel like you hit a wall or just don't have any energy and that you really are in need of some food versus the craving again is going to be more emotional. And I love this one where hunger, if you think of like you let yourself get too hungry, you're probably going to reach for whatever's convenient, right? It doesn't really matter what it is. So I know some people like to ask themselves like, okay, I'm going to eat an apple if I'm hungry, but if I'm not hungry enough to eat that, like you said Brenda, like okay, with like eating a chicken breast, maybe I'm not hungry, and cravings tend to be for specific foods. So when you find yourself food surfing, so I like to think of like this is where you've got both arms on, the refrigerator doors or your pantry and you're just kind of looking for something that looks good, you're probably not hungry, my friend. So you're maybe looking for to fill some time or again maybe to try and avoid some maybe negative emotions. And food tastes better. So in the Michelle May book here that I share, she talks about how hunger is the best seasoning. So you think of like how when you're really hungry, like how good food tastes versus when you think about again in that emotional eating scenario that we talked about, like are you even tasting the food? Like sometimes we just become so numb to the eating sensations that we're so far removed from a lot of that. Whereas again, hunger, you're just going to really kind of be more so in that moment. And then hunger is not a bad thing. So I know when I start working with people, sometimes they don't even remember maybe the last time that they've been hungry. That can be a little bit scary, but hunger is not a bad thing. We've evolved to work through long periods of time before between meals. And it wasn't until recently that we started to do things like snack and graze and eat, 6 meals a day. So think back to like even your grandparents, like, they were probably pretty regimented. Like breakfast was at 8, lunch was at noon, and then they had family meals, but they weren't worried about, who's going to bring the snacks because they're just there for mealtime. And then cravings, we've talked a lot about tonight just how that can be a signal for maybe fulfillment in other areas of life. So, what exactly are you craving? And I love this quote. So, I've had even some people like write this on a post it note. So, when they open up the fridge or open up the pantry, that this is there to remind you that what you're looking for isn't in here. So, maybe, for example, we talked about loneliness earlier. So maybe you're just feeling really lonely, and what you're really looking for is connection with another human. So maybe you can pick up the phone or write a card to someone. And, we talked about stress, for example. Like maybe what you're looking for is some relief, and you just need to set a timer for 15 minutes and sit your butt on the couch or watch one episode of just, guilty pleasure reality TV to take your mind off the day. So maybe it isn't food exactly that you are looking for. So some takeaways from today. So I hope that you can see just that those vicious effects of the dieting cycle. So how that really impacts mindset, and then also how that can impact your physiology too when we look at just losing muscle and gaining fat over time. And hopefully you've identified some of your emotional eating triggers, kind of thinking about that who, what, where, when, why, and some of the events that lead up to your specific scenario. You've got some things in your pocket now to really distinguish the difference between hunger and cravings. And then I'll see if I can share my screen for the additional resources. Or actually, no, Brenda, you shared that link a couple of times here. But on the additional resources, I'll get into that. And I did want to just share a little bit more. If you feel like today's talk really resonated with you and you're wanting more support, I do have some options too, and I would love to be on the end, like working with you one on one through that. So, I actually just launched a back on track program. So, this emphasis is heavy on nutrition. So, if you feel like maybe you've just kind of lost your ways, or you see some of those old habits creeping back, like grazing or emotional eating, I thought really long and hard about how to make it to cram everything in 10 days, but it happened. So it's a really kind of short, sweet, interactive course, and everything is done through my mobile app. So I'm literally in your back pocket if that's where you keep your phone, and we'll walk you through everything one on one. We've got one on one messaging and support, and day 5 I do a check-in and give you personalized feedback as well. So that is one option. And then this is some of the feedback. So I just launched this like less than 30 days ago, but we were talking about like other programs, and some feedback I've gotten is that this program is different than others that they've tried. They've really gotten a handle on grazing, and I'll say that that's a habit. The 10 days doesn't touch, decades of habits that we are working through. So we can definitely tease out some of those things, but you've got to show up and do some of that work too. So another option I have for support is my life membership. So a lot of times I will see women start on the back and on track, and then transition into our women's only online community. And I know some of the ladies are here with us tonight, and we have daily posts, journal prompts. We do weekly check-ins, which is new. So it's just nice for me to give you a little bit of feedback and check in with you on a personal basis each week. We have weekly live calls on various topics. So, like emotional eating or mindset or managing meals. So, some of the topics that we've talked about tonight. And then we also do a monthly challenge. So we have actually a count your candies challenge that will start on Wednesday. So again, we're trying to avoid that all or nothing mindset. So it's not that you can't have any Halloween candy. It's just that you'll be accountable to the group for the candy that you do have. So that is a few features of the membership program. And I do have a promo code set up. So if you use ProCare, you'll get 10% off either that group coaching or the Back on Track program. And really they're meant to complement each other. So you can do one, you can do them both. when you enroll in the membership, you actually do have the option to add that back on track, and you can choose your start date. So if you want to start on Monday, you can start on Monday, and you have the option to choose that. But once you enroll in either one, you will get a link to download the app, and you'll have immediate access to the resources. And I am always happy to field any questions if you're wondering what might be a good fit, or if we would be a good fit working together. And you've got the link to join there or on the resource sheet that Brenda shared. So thank you everyone for joining us. So I know, Brenda, you probably have some question. I know we've kind of done a lot of questions throughout the talk here. I think we've got a few minutes left. So
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Kayla. And thank you for sharing your resources too. Wonderful prices for those too. I mean, that's on target for, could be very affordable for a lot of people. Gwen says, back on track is fabulous reboot for getting your mind on track. So she's giving you a shout out. And it looks like Kathy Hill says she has a question. She says, what would you suggest for those of us who had weight loss surgery and don't really feel hungry? I get busy and forget to eat, and then my body sends instant signals to eat something, anything now. Using a timer or alarm are too easy to ignore for me. I know I need to follow my own advice, just looking for other suggestions.
yeah, Kathy, I know you coach. It's the hardest to take our own advice sometimes, right? And Brenda, you too. It's like, okay, do this. I
Yeah.
actually have, my parents got me a sign for my office, and I'm looking at it right now, and it says, practice what you post. So I've been really mindful of that lately. But I would say, as far as just not feeling hunger, the timers, yes, that would be probably my reflex answer. But I think getting on schedule too, like getting some sort of schedule, because you'll adapt to that over time. Because when you're getting those insistent signals, I'm guessing it's probably maybe choices that you wouldn't pick had you not let yourself get overly hungry. But I would say a schedule. I know if you are kind of at a desk all day, it can, be helpful to, even if you, I can't remember the effect, but if you're setting a timer for every hour, taking a break, like that's the right way to, go about working instead of sitting down for 8 hours straight. But even kind of maybe syncing a timer like that with your eating schedule. So, yes.
One thing I'm going to mention too that really has helped me is, like, I have a backpack here and I've showed it on some of our lives that we've done. I actually have like the little zipper area at the very top, and I like keep a couple things like nuts, or there's a couple, mostly nuts, because that's always a really easy go-to for me. I think I have a protein bar, but those are things like I just keep, and if I remember, or sometimes like I just keep with me so that, like if I know it's kind of time that I think I should be eating something and I haven't, so I don't get overly hungry. Another suggestion, Kathy, whenever I worked, right now I work from home, so I'm not really in an office setting, but I actually had a snack drawer, or had an area where I would just like put a couple snacks down by my desk. I know it sounds silly, but just to remind me of things that I could have. Because if you have healthy stuff there, you're more likely to eat those than go into the, especially if you're in a work environment, like the things that they bring in those, I don't know, Kaylee, if you worked in a doctor's office, some of the snacks that are in there is not always the little healthiest things.
I learned in my internship that the dietitians always had the best and the least healthy snacks. So there was always bars. Somebody was making pumpkin bread or apple crisp. But yes, I love your snack idea. And I would say, like, if you are working from home, Kathy, another thing, like if a timer on your phone, or like say your fitness tracker is too hard to ignore, like maybe setting a timer on something where you have to get up and shut it off. Like if you use, I have to whisper so she doesn't go off, but like Alexa, or if you even like set a timer on your microwave or your stove, maybe like how you can program that in. But that, say you had your breakfast and you're going to set a timer for 4 hours later, that would be something that might get you out of the room, or just kind of break that, if it's too easy to just kind of swipe it off your phone.
Yeah. No, that's a great idea. Gwen said, okay. Enid says, thank you for your support, Kayla. And she also says, great question, Cassie. Kayla, Wait, great question. I'm getting tongue-tied. Great question, Kathy. Kayla, what is the best protein besides meat that is in the highest nutrition? Like what is, and maybe even on the go, do you have suggestions?
Yeah, yep. And I would say, so yes, like meat, I would say gram for gram is going to be the most satiating, probably the most protein per gram, but protein bars can be really helpful. And I would say, like, when you're looking at things like powders, things that can be helpful are like a whey powder. So, like a whey, or even I think there's like egg white proteins. I think those can be a little bit expensive, especially like with our state of eggs right now. But a whey based is going to give you the most absorption. So basically the best bang for your buck. And let's see here. I'm trying to think. I don't have any really specific brands. Typically, I'll tell people just to watch the added sugars. So whether it's a protein bar or a protein powder, I would say the least added sugar that you can get, the better. And I do have, I don't know if I linked it my on my resource sheet, but I'll share with you here. I've got some portable protein options on, I kind of compiled everything in an Amazon shop because I feel like we're all Amazon shoppers, but basically just like some quick and easy protein options. Some other ones are um like the cheese crisps, and like Brenda said, you do like nuts. So one of my favorite things to do is I will combine the I'll combine those cheese crisps. I can't say that word today. And nuts, and then like the roasted like bada beans or chickpeas, and make like a kind of savory salty mix.
Mm.
All right, so I think that should take you out to my protein kind of page. So those are just some quick portable protein options there.
Oh, thanks, Kathy, thanks, Kayla, for sharing that. That's super helpful. And it looks like Kathy asked about the RX bars, and I've seen those before. I kind of think they're kind of cool. Have you seen the RX bars before? They're
Those,
actually, yeah.
yeah,
What's your
I'm
thoughts on those?
picturing they say like 2 egg whites and 3 dates or something. I think those are the
I'll remove
RX
that from
bars.
stage, and then I'll pull it up here. I was like looking at
Okay.
them. I mean, I don't. We don't have. Me and Kayla do not have any affiliation, but I'll just share it because I pulled it up. Green.
And while you pull that up, maybe I'll look. It looks like Marlene is asking just how much protein do you recommend daily? I would say generally the advice is like 60 to 80 grams a day. So generally I'll recommend like trying to get 20 to 30 grams per meal, which I know can be a really big ask, but I get asked a lot about like, X amount of calories too much after surgery. But really, I would say if you're aiming for 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal, the calories are going to take care of themselves. So if you can get it, that 60 to 80 grams, even higher, like closer to 100 grams, would be even like maybe ideal. But I know that's a really big ask too, especially in the early weeks and days after surgery.
Yeah.
Um, and
I
then a
pulled it
good,
up. It was basically for you may have seen online on my screen, but it was 3 egg whites, like 6 almonds, 4 cashews, 2 dates, no BS.
Mhm, yeah.
It's just simple ingredients. So a few ingredients is what those are made of.
Yeah, I love that it's all like whole foods because I feel like now sometimes you find a protein bar and it's like a glorified Snickers sometimes. So, yes, I would say that is one. I know I think posted to like Instagram and TikTok today about things like processed foods. Like, yes, they can be helpful, but ultimately a lot of those are just still highly processed. So if you can get whole foods or even pair something like that with something else, that can be really helpful just to help keep you fuller longer. Because when I think of things like Quest chips, or there's like protein puffs I see a lot now, it's like those dissolve on your tongue. Like they're not even, yes, you maybe ingested 30 grams of protein, but you have no satiation. Like nothing's in your stomach. It's all dissolved. So just thinking about things like that, like when you do have the slider foods, I would say, yes, slider foods can still be high protein, but pairing them with other things is really going to help.
Oh, Enid, thank you. She says I'm a good baker. This is nice, sweet. Marlene says, is it true we can't absorb no more than 30 grams a meal?
I actually just listened to a podcast on this, and it ranges. So I want to say it was almost like up to 50 grams a day. But one thing that I learned was like, especially in the morning, trying to get like 25, 30 grams of protein right away in the morning can help because it basically helps kind of kick your body into muscle preservation mode. And I don't know, I'm trying to think of the podcast. It was pretty technical, but it was just talking about absorption, and it ranges based on people, and essentially like age can have a big impact on that too, or whether you're doing sort of different types of training. So the answer would be it ranges from, I want to say, like 25 to 50 grams at a time. So I doubt you're exceeding 50 grams, so I wouldn't be too concerned.
I also want to share. So Kayla, we shared your Amazon thing. I also want to share. So Kayla is actually an affiliate of ProCare. ProCare, and so we want to give a shout out to our sponsor. I just want to say, Kayla, do you have any favorite products for ProCare that you want to say?
I do, and I have them on my resource sheet too. So I just plugged in
Oh, did
the
you?
once a day. So there is and I want to back up and say that I'm really, really picky. And one thing that I love about ProCare is everything is verified. So it's third party verified, which is not easy to find. So the FDA does not regulate our supplements. So what's on the label isn't always guaranteed when you're looking at supplements, but ProCare, go out of your way to make that. Plus, you're so transparent with all of your batch numbers. Cause I don't know if you still do it, but can't
Mhm.
somebody look up like their lot number and it takes you right to those specific specs? Like that's pretty
Yeah.
bold. And you guys are affordable. And I think just what you're doing for the community to make things easier is really, really helpful. And I did bookmark on that resource sheet the once a day capsule and the once a day chewable, because I find that, it can be a part-time job to manage food and fluids and vitamins, and it just can be really overwhelming. And I know that's how the owner started too. He's like, how many, fistfuls of vitamins are you taking a day?
Yeah.
So, mhm.
I mean, totally. It can be overwhelming for people who've had weight loss surgery. In fact, like whenever I was teaching bariatric surgery patients in the clinic side, to me, it was almost overwhelming, like even teaching it, because I was just like, this is so much information. So trying to simplify it, make it super easy.
And it's the first
Um,
thing to go. I feel like once,
yeah.
you get further out from surgery, what's the first thing you stop? It's taking your vitamins a lot of times. But
Yeah.
I think like the once a day, so I just recently read like, uh, this is my thrilling reading last month was my pocket guide to bariatric surgery. And it talks, so it's meant for dietitians, but it actually goes through and outlines like how many vitamins and minerals and what exact grams you need after surgery. And I compared it to the one a days, and ProCare nailed it on all of them. So there's like 11 or 12 specific ones, and you guys like hit the ranges on all of them.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, there's a lot of bariatric surgery companies out there. And guys, I know because I worked in a bariatric surgery clinic and I did a lot of those comparisons.
Hmm.
You want to look and you want to make sure. Like there's talk to your hospital. They'll know if there's the right fix for you, I guess.
And you do freebies too. So I think
Yeah.
if you visit the site through that link that Brenda shared, you can actually, ProCare will send you some free samples too, which,
I'm going to do that right now and I'll show them, Kayla. So I'm copying your link. So, guys, it's up there. I'm going to copy it and I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to the ProCare Health website by pasting that. Oops. If you paste Kayla's link, it'll bring you right here. And basically, right here under this button, here's his free sample. If there's products you want to try, put your name and address and all of that in there. Put it in the message box if there's something specifically, and if we're able to, we'll send you that. Someone did mention earlier, and here's the products that Kayla mentioned too: the bariatric multivitamins, the one a days. We have in varying degrees of iron in the capsule and in the chewable. And what else did you mention, Kayla?
those two. So the first two items that are mentioned there. So the capsule and then the chewable. And typically, I know some people just don't love chewables. So generally I say like if you're more than, 2 or 3 months post-op, then that's, if it's more convenient to go to something like a capsule, then by all means.
Yeah, and also I just want to share here too, under this About Us support group handouts, Kayla's handout is at the this is a long list, so bear with me. I'm going to kind of scroll down. Her handout is also there besides us posting it. She actually did Stuck After Surgery with us too, so she has a resource sheet from that too. Some of the same resources, but there may be extras on there. So you can also take a look there as well. I just kind of want to bring that up. And also somebody mentioned about the chocolates, about them being a nice little treat. Guys, update on that. We're hoping January that they're going to be in. We have manufacturing dates, but these are calcium chocolates. So that's what they look like. Some people.
And it's just seasonal, right? We don't ship in the summer.
Yes, it is seasonal. And usually just during the cooler months so they don't melt. That's kind of how it works. And I'm a big advocate, and Kayla, I've heard you say this on your social media stuff too. I'm a big advocate. If you can get some of this stuff in your diet, guys, please do it, because your diet is, it's an amazing way to, to fortify your body. So, but vitamins and supplements are that they're supplements. So, for people who don't absorb things as well, if you feel like you need additional support there.
All right. Did we get all the questions?
I think so. Cece says liquid cell packets are my favorite. And Marlene says due to COVID. Says due to COVID, it's on hold. So let's see. I'll look back because I know have you tried the liquid cell, Kayla?
I have. So I actually tried it in my internship. That is one thing that when I was training to be a dietitian that they used a lot in dialysis clinics. And I didn't even realize it until I saw your website. I was like, that is perfect for post-surgery. Let's see here. Marlene, is the appropriate amount of fluid intake half one's body weight? Good question. I would say generally, I think 64 ounces is what we throw out there, but for some people it might be more, for some people it might be less. And I think to really get into maybe your specific needs, I would even look at like urine color. So if you kind of put your Brenda hat on and pretend you're a nurse, look for that light pale yellow, that's going to be ideal in really knowing what you need. Because I don't know if it was true, there was a nephrologist, so a kidney doctor, and he was saying like some people, they need even half the amount of the 64 ounces. But yes, I don't know. That seems a little bit too low, but I would just look at like the color of your urine and that'll give you a good idea.
Good idea. Marlene's right. It does say on our website that we're halting samples because of COVID. I've not seen that on there before. So I'll have to ask my colleagues, but you could try it. It doesn't hurt to try. I'll have to check on that. I don't know what went on. And I know we're really close to time, and I know there's a few other questions. So we're just going to do a very quick summary, maybe like hit on a few of these really quickly. Kayla, do you think we could do them all here within just a few minutes?
Yeah, I think I just see for questions. Yeah, I
Yes.
think I just see one new one is the good vegetarian sources of protein. So I would say if you can do things like dairy, like if you're just avoiding meat, if you can still do things like eggs and dairy, those are going to be huge. Because if you are trying to follow vegan after weight loss surgery and get your protein needs, that is going to be really, really hard and take a lot of planning. Because if you think of things like beans, they're really high volume and you don't have the volume to get the amount of protein that you need. But things like eggs, dairy, milk, for example, even using some sort of protein supplements can help. And even things like tofu or edamame, some more of the plant-based things can help. But again, with some of those, you get a lot of volume, you get a lot of fiber, which tiny tummies don't always agree with. So I would say if you can do eggs and dairy, then awesome. And I think we got the water. I think we got them all, Brenda.
Okay. Wonderful. Some anonymous says, I eat a lot of seafood. Me too.
Yes,
that's one of my
fish is great. So when you think of like meat, like beef and chicken and fish, those are going to be dynamite for like gram per gram, getting the most bang for your buck for sure.
Well, thank you everybody. I think we got most of those. Guys, if you do have any questions, other questions, my email, hayb at
You can drop my
ProCare.
email here too.
Yeah.com. And Kayla's putting hers in there too. So if you have questions, you want to reach out, both of us um, would be happy to answer questions that way as well too. So thank you all for being here. And like she said, time is one of our most valuable commodities. So we appreciate all of you. Appreciate Kayla for being here, and everybody just enjoy the rest of their evening and their weekend. It's here.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Take care.